you by Bethel College School of Technology. Learn more at bethelcollege.edu/Ken. It turns out that the hustle culture of working after hours, sending emails, sending texts is beginning to backfire or has been backfiring for a while. I have in my hands a Fast Company article, and the author of the article makes some points, and I'm going to, weigh in on this. Specifically, 5 reasons why the sending emails, text, working after hours is backfiring. Let's look at where we stand in the world of work. Since the pandemic, there has been an increasing pressure on executives, on leaders of organizations to monitor overworking, to monitor burnout and things of this nature because of the tension on getting people back to the office and the freedom of working from home and all of the pluses, all the minuses. I'm not going to get into that issue. There's so many comments, so many feelings, so many pluses, so many negatives on both sides of the fully remote or work in the office. But the point here is that a lot of Americans are saying, you know what? I want more freedom. I want more autonomy. I don't want to work like crazy. I'm not going to stay with you. And so, as a result, leaders, CEOs, executives, HR departments are saying, we've got to keep an eye on this because if someone feels overworked, they got more options than they've ever had before, or at least that was certainly the perception coming out of the pandemic when we saw the Great Resignation happening. And so we want to watch this because it's very difficult financially and organizationally to replace someone. This is true. It interrupts rhythms. It interrupts momentum, all of which creates a productivity and a profitability problem. It costs a lot more money to replace someone than keeping somebody. And so, rightfully so, there is now a focus on let's monitor people's workload. Let's monitor their opinions on their workload. And so that's where we are now. So if a staff member, through a survey or through a direct meeting with their leader, gripes about their workload, it is a red flag that could get your manager in hot water. And so they're paying attention to it. But has it changed much of actual habits of people? A study came out last year that said 81% of remote employees check and answer emails and texts outside of work hours. Now, keep in mind, this is remote. So if your entire engagement of work is in a remote setting, is it easier for you to jump on your computer, jump on your phone after hours? I think the answer is yes. For instance, I work in an office. So when I'm done today, I will get in my car and I will drive home. Just that very act creates some psychological separation. I'm now leaving a place of work and I'm moving into my home and relationships and very different duties there. So there is a clear separation. Now, let's look at some of these surveys. Employees who feel they have to answer emails and texts outside of work hours say it drives job dissatisfaction, and this stat is at an all-time low. And as I said earlier, this is not just something that affects you in that you cannot detach, and so your stress levels stay high, and that negatively impacts you physically, mentally, spiritually, emotionally, but it also can get your boss in trouble. So, let's go through these 5 reasons why this is a bad idea, okay? That's the first one, the employee satisfaction. If employees are not satisfied, then their productivity drops, profitability goes with it. Reason number 1. Reason number 2 of why you shouldn't be working after hours. This is an interesting observation that's never happened to me, but I know it has happened. And the reason given by the author is that it's a knee-jerk reaction where you could just kind of, you're distracted, you're at home, maybe you're in the middle of a task, maybe you're out walking the dog and you're paying attention to the dog, maybe you're listening to music, you get a text in instead of letting that sit, or an email notification comes in instead of letting that sit the next morning. What do? You respond to it right away, and your brain's not completely intact as it relates to the focus issue. And so what do? You fire off something quick, and it comes across that way. It comes across as dismissive, maybe a little too abrupt or harsh, and now you've created a problem for yourself. Reason number 3, brain fatigue. The minute the text comes in, you're distracted from all those activities or whatever you're doing that's supposedly helping you fill back up. You've heard me say on the show many times, you can't give what you don't have. The very word recreation is recreation, to recreate yourself. And so the constant I'm on call for the next email, the next text, it creates a moment and then another moment and then another moment where instead of recreating yourself or refreshing yourself, you're actually weighing yourself down. Number 4, mistaken identity. One small slip of the thumb, you risk sending a work email to a good friend or maybe to a work enemy, or, what if we send something that was confidential and sensitive in the organization and it goes to somebody that shouldn't have seen it? Now, this happens all the time. I have been in a hurry before and will type in the person's first name thinking that it's populating the person I want to, and it goes to somebody else. I got a text the other day from a friend of mine who meant to send a text to another guy named Ken, and it came to me. And it was a confidential text. That was interesting. Oh, boy. What do you do in that situation? I'm the wrong kid. That's what I said. I texted. I was like, wrong Ken. Ugh. Now, it wasn't anything salacious. Nothing, but it was clearly like it was a personal message that I didn't even get. But it just made me feel weird and awkward. I think we got to be careful here. And again, if you're sending messages after hours, and again, distracted with other tasks, oh boy. And then, finally, the way the author of the article defines this is called being a keener. Keen, this is an old word we don't use very much anymore, but you're okay with working all the time, and you're kind of the person who's raising their hand saying, hey, I'm in for more, give me more, give me more, give me more. And that right there is a way to get ahead. But the author takes a stab at this and says, you know what? You don't want to be seen as somebody who's always willing to work. And this is where I take issue with the author on this. I think you can raise your hand and say, I'm willing to go the extra mile. I'm willing to do more. But you can also still be healthy with that. In other words, I don't think that you raising your hand saying, hey, I'm game to step up to do what you need means that you turn yourself into a workaholic and you're working after hours all the time. That's not what I think there are seasons, there are bursts where you could say, you know what, my leader needs a little extra help. This is an opportunity for me to step up and maximize my role. But now we live in a culture where we're throwing that out too and going, well, no, you just should never work after hours. I don't agree. I am not like these super entrepreneurs who work all the time and never see their family and essentially have no life in order to make a big number. And then all of a sudden they re-enter into their family life like, hey, remember me? I'm not for that, but I'm also not for this idea that I'm never going to go above and beyond what my role requires of me. This idea of quiet quitting, I'm going to do the bare minimum, I'm going to do a good job, and then I'm going to move on. I'm not for that either. But all in all, this idea of there are healthy boundaries between there are seasons where I've got to do something. Maybe I work late one night out of an entire month because I feel like that's really what's needed, but that's balanced with the rest of your life in that rhythm. So the idea here is that this constant on call, because you're constantly sending messages and emails, that's telling everybody you're working all the time and you're willing to do it, and that's not good. Launch your tech career today at bethelcollege.edu/Ken.